Somewhere in Deuteronomy, God gives a command about what you keep in your house that almost nobody preaches on. Most people believe demons are a horror movie problem, something rare and far away from ordinary life. But the priests the church actually appoints to do this work say otherwise. They say the most common entry point they find isn't in a haunted house. It's sitting on a shelf in an ordinary home, bought as a game, a decoration, or a bit of harmless fun. Rome's most famous exorcist wrote about finding cursed objects, braided cords, and small figures sewn inside mattresses and pillows. 4 church-appointed exorcists working in Indiana, Nashville, Colorado, and Rome across 4 decades keep circling back to the same short list. It's the opposite of superstition, and by the end of this video, you will know exactly what to look for and exactly what to do about it. Here's the real question underneath all of this. Can a physical object actually give a demon a foothold in your home, or is that just old fear talk with no substance behind it? Start with what the church does not teach. No object carries magic power sitting inside it. A tarot card cannot hurt you on its own, no more than a piece of cardboard can. So if that's true, why do exorcists keep talking about objects at all? Because the danger was never the material, it's the bond attached to it. Father Vincent Lampert, the exorcist for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis, describes people going to psychics and mediums, trying to communicate with the dead, playing with things like Ouija boards and tarot cards, and in his own words, they think it's just all fun and entertainment, it's just games, but they don't realize that they're actually dabbling with evil. Inadvertently, they may be opening up an entry point to evil into their lives. Father Chad Ripperger, a Thomistic theologian and long-serving exorcist, uses a sharper word, infestation, and he draws a line that almost every horror movie gets wrong. Demons do not possess objects. Only a person can be possessed. Infestation affects places, things, and animals, and it works through a curse, which he describes as a demon assigned to do harm. The object is never the power, it is the address. This matters because the occult never went away, it just went mainstream. Astrology apps on every phone, crystal shops in every mall, tarot aesthetics across every feed. If you're interested in deepening your faith, hit like and tell me where you're watching from. Consider subscribing to stay rooted in Catholic truth. Support our videos, team, and tools. Link in the description, or scan the QR code on screen. So where does the church actually get the authority to call any of this dangerous? It starts a lot earlier than you would think. Long before any exorcist wrote a book, God gave Israel a command about their own homes. Moses commands the people in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, never to bring an abominable thing into their houses, warning that they would become just as accursed as the thing itself. And look at what the verse right before it is actually about. Burn the images of their gods and do not covet the silver and the gold on them. Not the wood, not the craftsmanship, the precious metal, the one part that looked completely harmless once you melted it down. That is the thing Israel was told not to carry home. 2 Hebrew words carry that command. The thing itself is a to'eva, an abomination. The household that takes it in becomes cherem, devoted to destruction, set apart under a ban, not decoration, not neutral, marked, and bringing it inside marks the house along with it. Chapter 18 of the same book names the categories directly, and the list runs 9 deep. Anyone who burns his son or his daughter as an offering, anyone who practices divination, a soothsayer, an augur, a sorcerer, a charmer, a medium, a wizard, a necromancer. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord. Human sacrifice sits at the top of that list, and fortune-telling sits underneath it, in the same breath for the same reason. Read it slowly, and it covers almost exactly what a modern occult shop sells. Fast forward to the book of Acts, chapter 19. Paul is preaching in Ephesus, the occult capital of the ancient world. New converts start showing up, confessing what they used to practice, and then they do something remarkable. They gather their magic books, the famous Ephesian letters, formulas written down, rolled up, and worn as amulets. Charms, in other words. They counted the value at 50,000 pieces of silver. A single silver drachma was 1 day's wage for a working man, so 50,000 of them is closer to 150 years of ordinary pay, and they burn every single one in public. Not sold, not quietly donated, burned so no one else could ever pick them up again. Scripture says, right after that moment, the word of the Lord continued to increase and prevail mightily. Paul makes the theology explicit in his first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 10. What pagans sacrifice, they offer to demons, and you cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. And in the same letter, he says an idol has no real existence. Both are true at once. The material is nothing. The consent is everything. In his second letter to the same church, chapter 6, he asks, what accord has Christ with Belial? What agreement has the temple of God with idols? Around the year 200, the Christian writer Tertullian pressed that same point so hard in his treatise on idolatry that he condemned not only the people who worshipped idols, but the craftsmen who carved them. And he argued that astrologers had no place in the church at all. That is the same distinction the church still makes today. The Catechism of the Catholic Church takes all of this and states it as settled teaching. In paragraph 2116, it says all forms of divination are to be rejected, and it names them: consulting horoscopes, astrology, palm reading, the interpretation of omens and lots, the phenomena of clairvoyance, and recourse to mediums. And it tells you why. All of it conceals a desire for power over time, over history, and in the last analysis, over other people. Then in paragraph 2117, it adds something people miss constantly. Wearing charms is also reprehensible. So now you are standing exactly where Israel stood at the border of the promised land, and exactly where those Ephesian converts stood with their arms full of scrolls. What does that actually look like in your house today? Here are the 5 categories those church-appointed exorcists keep naming. First, the Ouija board. Hasbro sells it in the game aisle, rated ages 8 and up. Here is the manufacturer's own product description. You've got questions and the spirit world has answers, and the uncanny Ouija board is your way to get them. And it closes with this line: handle the Ouija board with respect and it won't disappoint you. Father Dan Rehill, exorcist for the Diocese of Nashville, does not soften it. Ouija boards should not be viewed in the same way as a typical board game. Although it is advertised as a game, it is far from it. Rather, it is a form of divination. Second, tarot cards and fortune-telling tools, including horoscopes and pendulums. Tarot and pendulums are not listed by name in paragraph 2116, and they do not need to be. They are the interpretation of omens and lots, which is exactly what the Catechism has already rejected. The issue is never the printed picture on the card. It is the desire underneath it, wanting the future handed to you on your own terms instead of trusted to God's providence. Third, so-called healing crystals and New Age charms, including protection items sold for their own spiritual energy. Paragraph 2117 shuts the door before you can open it. It condemns any attempt to tame occult powers and place them at your service. And then it adds 5 words aimed straight at the healing crystal. Even if this were for the sake of restoring their health, then plainly, wearing charms is also reprehensible. Here is a clean way to see the difference. A relic has no power of its own. It points you back to God working through a saint. A crystal is credited with power of its own. One is prayer pointed outward. The other is magic pointed inward. And be careful here. A quartz sitting on a shelf is a rock. A quartz worn to protect you is a charm. The stone did not change. The request did. Fourth, occult books and spell material. Actual instruction in ritual and divination. This is the modern version of what burned in the streets of Ephesus. Fifth, cursed objects and idols connected to false worship or occult ritual. Father Gabriele Amorth, exorcist of the Diocese of Rome for 30 years and founder of the International Association of Exorcists, wrote about finding cursed items, strange cords, and small objects sewn into mattresses and pillows to bring misfortune on a household. His advice was strikingly calm and practical. Sprinkle the object with holy water, then burn it in the open, and put the ashes into running water. Notice the pattern across all 5. Nothing here claims the object has power. Every single exorcist says the opposite. The danger is the invitation, the ritual, or the curse attached to it, never the material itself. Confess the sin first if you engaged in the practice. Destroy the object so it no longer resembles what it was. 3 cautions, because people get this part wrong. Do not burn anything indoors, and do not destroy what is not yours. If you cannot burn it safely or legally, break it so it can never be used again and get rid of it. And blessed objects are the exception. A damaged rosary or a broken sacramental never goes in the trash. Those are burned or buried reverently. Then bless the space with holy water, a crucifix, the St. Michael prayer, and ask a priest to bless the house. You do not need a diocesan exorcist for that, and you do not need special permission. Canon law lets any priest give a blessing. It is only major exorcism that requires the bishop's express permission. Call your parish. Most priests will say yes. If this is landing for you, this is exactly why we built our web app with daily Catholic resources and soul search, so you can keep going deeper long after this video ends. Now, I know what some of you are already thinking. Isn't this whole video just superstition, the very thing the Catechism condemns? That is actually the sharpest objection here, so let's take it seriously. The Catechism defines superstition in paragraph 2111 as a deviation of religious feeling, and it warns that you can fall into it even with practices that are lawful and necessary the moment you attribute a magical importance to their bare external performance. Read that again because it cuts both ways. It condemns the crystal and it condemns treating holy water like a counterspell. This teaching says the object has no power at all. What is real is the sin, the consent, and the curse attached to it. That is exactly why the remedy is confession and blessing, never a counter-charm of your own. And Amorth himself wrote that the infestation of an object is very rare, and told his readers to proceed with great prudence before ever claiming something is infested. What about Harry Potter? Father Rehill consulted exorcists in the United States and in Rome before pulling the books from his school library. His reasoning deserves a fair hearing. Presenting magic as both good and evil is, in his words, a clever deception. But be precise about what that was. One pastor, one school library, 2019. His own diocese said he was within his authority and also said other schools were free to decide differently. Rome has never condemned the books, and a Vatican spokesman spoke well of them in 2003. Plenty of faithful Catholics land differently on fantasy fiction, and that disagreement deserves charity. The Catechism condemns divination and magic as practices. It does not legislate about magic in fiction, which is exactly why a novel and an actual spell book are not the same case, and on the spell book and the tarot deck, the Catechism has already decided. And if you do not believe in any of this at all, fair enough. But consider this. The Church's own posture is the skeptical one, and it is written down. Paragraph 1673 of the Catechism says that psychological illness is the business of medical science, and that before any exorcism, it must be established that you are dealing with the presence of the evil one and not an illness. Rule out everything natural first, and only then take the spiritual seriously. Amorth said the same thing in blunter language. Most people who walked into his office were not possessed at all. Meanwhile, the same secular world, dismissing the spiritual reality, spends over $2 billion a year in the United States alone on what market researchers politely call mystical services, with the astrology app market valued in the billions on top of that. Something in the human heart already knows it is hungry for more than this world offers. So where does that leave you, standing in your own house tonight? The pattern across the whole Bible and every exorcist we have quoted comes down to one line. Deuteronomy told Israel not to bring the accursed thing home. The Ephesians burned theirs in the street. The Catechism still says the same thing in different words, centuries later. If you have any of these 5 in your house, do not panic. Go to confession if you need to. Destroy the object, holy water and fire if you can do it outdoors and safely, and if you cannot, break it so it can never be used again. Bless the room, bless the whole house if you can, and lean harder into the Mass, the Rosary, and the St. Michael prayer. Remember St. Bartolo Longo. He went so deep into the occult that he was ordained a priest of a satanic sect, and he still came home and built the shrine to Our Lady of the Rosary at Pompeii that stands there today. Pope Leo XIV canonized him in October of 2025. Nobody is ever too far gone. If this helped you, share it with a friend, subscribe, and check out our web app for daily Catholic resources and soul search. Don't just clean your house, consecrate it.